Hi, my friends, dear friends, welcome to my first class. And this is Asim Zafir, your from Silicon Valley Tech, and I'll be covering some fundamentals of how things basically works in some of the technology basics and around operating systems, cloud in general, and but we'll go some of the basics and which can really get you, which I mean, in order to do any project, or if you're trying to become a programmer, if you want to make a career out of in computer science related profession, either it's on the development side or on production engineering type of roles, I can it will help you. So I think the first video I'll just explain you in general that what I will be covering for you. So I think there are certain skills that every person should really know, and we'll talk about that. And some of the key skills that I think I will be covering throughout my videos on this channel. So the very first thing which I feel like is very important to understand is I mean basically what is computers, what are the important components we have in a computer, and what matters the most, and what is how computer communicates over the network, meaning how does two computers or two or many computers talk to each other, and what type of resources are important, and how are they used in day-to-day transactions. Also, what is the role of what manages operating system, what manages the computer, right? Computer system. So I think these are the few good questions that we can cover in our first lecture. And let's see. So what are the let's pick up the first question. So the first question says that important components. So let's take the first one. So important components in a computer. So of course we have memory, which is also called non-volatile memory, which means that it is not persistence, meaning it can erase, and it is volatile. I can spell it. So let's see, non-volatile memory, and then we have persistent storage, which is also called physical storage, right? Which is also in generic terms called local disk or hard disk in the old terminologies, right? There are different types of it. They are SSDs, and their HDs are obsolete now, and then and there are other type of media. So this is mostly media, and then we have network resources. Network resources are, it's an additional component, but processor, storage, memory, and also most importantly CPU, right? The processing unit, which is computing processing unit, that is computing instructions. So these are some of the important components in the computer. What matters the most? So I guess if you just talk about what computers actually do, computers is processing some information, right? Some information that's processing its brain, which is processing information. So one aspect of information is how it is retrieved, right? So it can be loaded, it can be retrieved, loaded, retrieved from some external systems, computers, via some type of network interface. Network interface means the two computers are connected over a wire. So it can be like, okay, we have a computer A and then we have a computer B, and both of these computers are basically talking to each other, and they are retrieving some information. Okay, and we can have this two-way transaction from here to here. So the element in between, which is this element, is actually uh, a network, right? So you can say that this is a network. Let me bring that. Okay, so this element here is a network, right? So this can be a network, or I think I'll just use a convention called ETH, which is referring as network. So going forward, so it's easy to understand. So it's a network. So that's Ethernet, that's network, and that is connecting the two computers A and B together. So and then what is getting loaded? So there are external media. So you can have external drive, or the storage drives like USB drives or SSD drives, or any type of storage media getting plugged into your computer via some type of interface. Interface basically means if you have two components right here, and these two components, in order to talk to each other, they need to be connected, and that interface between them is the network. But there could be some external interfaces that are very common, and external interfaces, so they could be USB interfaces. USB is an external interface that plugs, if available, can interface a USB drive, which USB drive, or stick drive you say, or it could be a NAS storage, that can plug into your computer, and you can still load and retrieve content from there. Once the content is retrieved, it needs to be processed, right? Processing requires compute, CPU, and CPU. Before CPU processes anything, it will retrieve. It retrieves the external storage, persist information. External storage like USB disk or external disk will are generally less faster than sometime a local disk that's already installed on the system. So it can load the information into persistent storage, and then this persistent storage, the compute needs to happen on some type of data, and that data is sitting on some persistent storage. That persistent storage in this case could be a local hard disk or SSD that's directly interfaced on the system, and USB in this case could be an external drive. So this is less faster, this is a little bit more faster, and in order to further going down the chain, the processing will require some low latency memory footprint, which will be memory. In this case, generic terms, we call that RAM, and then RAM. After RAM, you have CPU, and generally, what will happen? The CPU, CPU has a great interaction with memory and the RAM, and some partial information gets loaded into RAM, and then CPU reads it off RAM and then processes it, and can also use memory footprint to temporarily store some processing data here, which can then later pass on to the persistent storage, or and can also be uh, transferred via some type of network to other computer. So that's a very generic way of spreading information. So this through Ethernet networks, it can go to some other computing environment. Let's say we had computer B, and we had over here we had like another unit which was basically processing data. So you can think of something like this. So we have computer A, in this case processing information via let me just draw it fine. So it could be like this, right? So so that's how things can work. I guess, and what type of how computer communicates over network, what type of resources are important, what manages computer system. So in order to manage this entire activity, we need there is a very important role of operating systems. So operating system, if you don't have an operating system, you can't communicate with any. The only way that you can communicate with your computers is through operating system. So if you think about it, all your instructions are saved in a computer. This is an operating system. This is some type of resources that you have. Like for example, you have a CPU, memory, and any other component, let's say media device like hard disks or SSDs or any other HDs, etc. Right? All of this needs to you need to I mean there needs to be some type of protocol or some some type of external protocol that can manage all these resources, and that job is done by operating system. So operating system manages the resources of a computer in general. So I'm just trying to be a little fast. These are some very advanced topics, and you can spend a lot of time understanding that. I think I don't want to extend too. I don't want to go extremely in a lot of detail, but I'll be covering most of the operating system skills with you that will help you understand. How computers are operated, managed day to day. So there are different type of operating systems, and I think some of them you are familiar with. So let's see what type of operating systems we have. They are very common. So we have Linux, Windows, BSDs systems, and we have different type of operating systems, but I think Microsoft Windows, and then we have different type of BSD versions, like very old free BSDs and net BSDs, right? And then we also have Debian type of systems, which are very famous. One is Ubuntu and Xubuntu, and the list goes on. I think what I will be covering mostly, and by the way, these are draw an asterisk as all Unix-like systems, right? But their kernel architecture is slightly different than each other. So pretty much if you know the operating one of these operating system, you'll not have a hard time. The one in asterisk, I mean, you can pretty much try operate with the same little or you may have a little here and there type of differences, but you can still catch it up. So I'm going to cover mostly, I'm going to use as a baseline a reference of Linux as an operating system. I may cover some aspects of later on uh, about something called data structures, and I may use a programming language to explain that programming language, and that will be Python. So this is good to know. So, but majority of my starting video is going to be all about operating system. I hope you like this introduction. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach me out. Thank you very much.